The veil lay bright as morning snow across the dining chair, catching a square of sunlight. I lit the kitchen candle and watched the flame steady itself, the small wick standing brave. When I opened the velvet ring box, the hinge clicked like a heartbeat in a quiet room. I set my tote on the table and made a neat row. Safety pins, folded tissues, a spool of white thread, mints, tiny scissors, and 2 bandages. Her vows, printed in blue ink on thick paper, slid into a plastic sleeve so they wouldn't smudge. Beside the candle, a framed photo showed my daughter at 5, grinning around a missing tooth, hugging a daisy taller than her arm. A small worry opened. His stories never kept one shape for long. She padded in wearing her robe, cheeks pink, hair in soft rollers. "Drink water," I said, handing her a glass. She smiled, that same fearless child and a grown woman at once. "I'm okay, Mom." I smoothed an invisible crease on her sleeve, the way mothers do when words feel too heavy to set down before noon. My phone buzzed on the counter. I texted the pastor, leaving in 10. "See you at the side door." His reply came quickly, steady as his voice on Sundays. "We're ready. Safe drive." I checked keys, wrapped the veil in tissue, and lifted her dress from its hanger with both hands. We took one more breath in that familiar kitchen, then locked the door and carried our mourning into the car. The road to the church runs under old oaks that lean toward each other like neighbors. Sunlight sifted through the leaves, dappled across the dashboard. At the long light by the school, I remembered last night's call. His battery had died, he said. Last week, he'd said he left his phone at the gym. I pressed the thought down like a lifted nail and focused on the lane ahead. The church's brick steps rose warm in the sun, wide and sure. 2 ushers in dark suits practiced tying their boutonnieres, laughing softly. The guest book waited on a polished wooden stand with a pen tied by a ribbon, its pages turned to a clean line. Programs sat in a woven basket, the tops fanned like hymn pages. Lemon polish and beeswax met us at the door. Friends murmured blessings as we passed. I kept my tote close and my pace even, nodding, smiling, placing a reassuring hand at my daughter's back. In the hallway, a bridesmaid lifted the veil carefully from the garment bag, and I secured the comb with 2 firm pins. "Hold here," I whispered, and she did. From the sanctuary, the organ tested a phrase that rolled like a deep river under a bridge. We turned toward the side entrance, light pooling on the checkerboard floor. The pastor appeared there with a clipboard tucked beneath his arm, his smile warm and steady, and lifted his hand to welcome us so gently in. The stained glass threw soft patches of blue and gold across the white aisle runner, as if the morning itself had knelt. Pew flowers leaned in small white halos, tied with satin ribbon. The microphone on its slim stand waited with its red light silent. At the altar, the pastor opened his worn Bible and placed a single sheet on it. He lifted a pen. "Before we continue, please sign this," he said, voice even. He turned the clipboard toward the groom. At the top, in clear black letters, "Consent to pastoral disclosure. I need your consent to disclose essential facts learned in counseling and records," he continued, eyes kind, not sharp. "We spoke about this practice when we began. With your consent, I can share. Without it, I cannot proceed." The pen rested like a small bridge between them. The groom's fingers hovered and shook, then retreated to the seams of his jacket. A flush rose along his neck. My daughter's bouquet tilted, white roses breathing their clean scent. She looked back at me over her shoulder. I nodded once, slow, as if to say, "Breathe." The organist's hands lifted from the keys, leaving a hush that felt polite and worried all at once. He cleared his throat. "Right now?" he asked. "Here?" His shoulders crept up, then stayed as though a strap had snagged there. The pastor did not move the pen closer or farther away. "Yes," he said gently. "It is your choice. No blame either way. But I will not invite vows without consent to disclosure. Clarity protects everyone." The groom looked at the pen, then at the gathered faces. A program slipped from someone's lap and whispered against the runner. In the second pew, an aunt dabbed her eye. Not sure why. The groom's hand stayed at his sides. He didn't reach. The pastor gave him time, and when no hand lifted, he nodded once. He touched the mic. Its red light blinked awake. "Friends," he said, warm as a grandfather by a porch lamp. "Thank you for your patience. We need a brief pause to confirm a private matter before we continue. Please remain seated. Our ushers will assist you if you need anything. We'll step into the fellowship hall for a moment." He looked to us, then to the attendants, then back to the guests. Kindness is appreciated. The ushers rose in quiet accord, hands gentle at elbows. I lifted the edge of my daughter's train so it would not catch on the runner. The pastor tucked the clipboard under his arm, Bible still open. Stained glass light shifted as a cloud went past, brief and soft. We turned toward the side aisle, toward the door that led to coffee smells and folding chairs. As we walked, I counted my steps to steady us and felt the sanctuary exhale while we slipped into the hall. Behind us, programs rustled and then settled, like leaves deciding to be still. The organ held a single note. We traded pews for folding chairs, and the hush of the sanctuary for the warm clatter of the fellowship hall. On the long table, the cake waited under plastic wrap, its frosting roses unruffled. A sign-in book lay open beside a jar of pens. The bulletin board held potluck flyers and nursery schedules, ordinary life steadying the walls. The pastor appeared with a tray of paper cups, steam curling from their lids. "Tea?" he asked, offering with both hands, as if passing peace itself. Church ladies in floral aprons lifted tablecloths from a cart and shook them open like small sails. "Let's seat our elders first," one usher murmured, guiding a grandmother to a chair with arms. Someone set a fan near the corner where the light fell softer. Napkins were fanned beside the cake, and a serrated knife rested under a folded towel, waiting for a celebration that would take its time. My daughter's fingers were cold in mine. Her bridesmaid stepped in close, sequins making a quiet circle that blinked kindly in the overhead lights. "Breathe with me," I whispered. She matched my pace, in and out, the way we practiced before dental appointments and hard phone calls. The pastor touched a small mic on his collar. "Friends," he said, voice even and warm, "thank you for your kindness. We need a short pause to confirm a private matter before we proceed. Please rest and be at ease. Our ushers can help with any needs." Heads nodded. Conversation stayed low, like bees in a garden. Aunties found each other and clasped hands. Someone set out a plate of crackers just in case. I could see the groom across the room, standing by the tiled floor's dark seam, eyes on the grout lines. His hand turned his cufflink and then turned it again. A text buzzed in my pocket. I glanced down. "We love you." "Take your time," wrote my sister from the second row, a little heart drawn after her name. I tucked the phone away, grateful for that small anchor. The bulletin board's weekly pie sale flyer seemed suddenly profound. The bridesmaids adjusted their arc, bodies making shade for my daughter's face. The florist's assistant slipped in with a square of tissue, blotting a smudge of mascara with the care of a nurse changing a bandage. "You're okay," she whispered. "You are loved." The pastor moved among the guests, thanking them by name, steadying the room like a hand on a rocking table. He caught my eye, then the groom's, and gave a small nod that asked and reassured at once. The organist, now in the doorway, closed the lid over the keys with a soft click. He came to us last. "May I ask the three of you, just the three, to step to my office for a brief moment?" he said. His voice held no edge, only a path. "We'll keep this private. I'm with you," I told my daughter, gathering the train so it wouldn't catch. The bridesmaids opened a gap for us. We passed the cake, the napkins, the bowl of mints, and the hum quieted around our steps. The groom followed a pace behind, eyes on the floor, shoes careful on tile. The hallway smelled faintly of coffee and lemon cleaner. Family photos lined the wall, vacation Bible school, choir robes, a youth car wash. Every frame a reminder that communities can choose gentleness. At the end of the hall, a wooden door bore a small brass plate that read "Pastor." He held it open with his shoulder, clipboard tucked under his arm, and waited until we all drew near. "Take your time," he said softly. We moved together through that doorway, not fast, not slow, our hands full of fabric and paper cups and the next quiet step. The pastor's office smelled of paper and lemon oil. A wooden cross hung above a short bookshelf. The printer beside his desk was still warm, a green light blinking as if it had just finished speaking. He slid a manila folder from the blotter and set it between us. "I want to explain why I paused," he said, settling into his chair without leaning away from us. "Pastoral care is confidential. When information arrives that could affect vows, I need permission to share specifics. That is why I asked for consent in the sanctuary. Without it, I may only say that essential information exists." He opened the folder. On top lay a printed email from the county clerk, the ink still fresh enough to shine. Beneath it, a photocopy of a civil marriage record bearing the groom's full name and date. There were notes from premarital sessions, headings in his tidy hand. Last, a transcript of a voicemail received at dawn. He turned the transcript so we could read the first lines. "Please make sure she knows," it read. "I do not want to embarrass anyone." The pastor looked up. She also referenced an incident report she filed months ago, then withdrew after mediation. The fact of that report, alongside today's records, required me to pause. The groom pressed his fingers to his temples and rubbed small circles. There's been paperwork lag, he said. We separated. I thought it would be final by now. I didn't want to make a big thing in front of everyone. His voice went thin at the edges, like paper held too close to a flame. My daughter sat very straight. Color had left her cheeks, but not her steadiness. She folded the edge of her veil once, then twice, as if aligning it with a more honest line. Is it still active? She asked, eyes on the photocopy. The room seemed to wait with her. That is the question, the pastor said. He tapped the printed email gently. The clerk's message indicates a record remains open, but I would like you to hear it directly. You deserve facts, not rumors, and certainly not from a pulpit. He closed the folder, palms resting on it like a blessing rather than a lock. He reached for the phone on his desk and angled it toward us, coiled cord neat beside a pad of message slips. We can call the county together, he offered. Speakerphone if you wish. The printer gave a tiny whir and released another sheet. The clerk's email printed again, with the seal showing clearly this time. I'm willing, I said, hearing the steadiness of my own voice before I felt it. The groom stared at the pattern in the rug. Fine, he muttered. Call. My daughter smoothed the folded edge of her veil flat and nodded. The pastor pressed a button. A dial tone rose, simple and honest as a tuning fork. He reached for his contact card with the clerk's number neatly circled. We stepped into the light, the stone steps holding the morning like a warm hand. She was there at the bottom, a strand of hair blowing across her tired eyes. In one arm, a diaper bag with a clipped pacifier swung. In the other, a worn folder hugged against her ribcage. When she saw us, she straightened, polite even in worry. I'm sorry to meet you like this, she said, voice careful. I was married to him at the courthouse last year. She opened the folder. A photocopy with a blue stamped seal lay on top, corners rounded from being carried. Beneath it, a petition with a case number and the word withdrawn penciled at the bottom. She slid out 2 photos of text messages, printed on ordinary paper and stapled in the corner. He kept saying he would fix everything. I believed him until dates kept shifting, she said, pointing with a steady finger. I did not know he pursued another ceremony. I only want safety and honesty for us both. My daughter held her bouquet lower, no longer needing it to be anything but flowers. Thank you for coming, she said, shoulders squared, voice level. We won't proceed today. She didn't ask for explanations. She simply set a boundary in a sentence. The wind tugged at the ribbon around the folder. The woman smoothed it, then paused. There's a small support order tangled in this, she added, glancing at the diaper bag as it bumped her knee. Some months it showed, some months it didn't. I don't know why. I'm not here to accuse. I'm here so you're not surprised like I was. I hear you, I said. I took out my phone and opened the Notes app, not to interrogate, but to honor her effort with a record. Would you be willing to share copies? She nodded and offered a neat stack. Marriage record, petition, 2 printed screenshots. A yellow sticky note at the back held her name and number in tidy handwriting. Email and text are better, she added. I keep everything in writing now. We will too, my daughter said. The church bell chimed the half-hour, kind and impartial. The stone under my shoes felt steady. The pastor stepped quietly onto the landing beside us, clipboard tucked away, his hands open. Thank you for meeting here, he said to her, with the same gentleness he offers at hospital bedsides. Would you like a copy of a referral for a family lawyer? I can write a time on it so you don't have to wait. She glanced at me. I nodded. We'll meet together, I said. He pulled a small cream card from his breast pocket and wrote in blue ink, Monday, 9 a.m., then circled the time as if building a railing around it. We exchanged numbers, mine and my daughter's, hers on the sticky note. Let's keep everything documented and calm, the pastor said, meeting each of our eyes. No surprise meetings. If anything is needed at the church, you can loop me in. Agreed, she said softly. She tucked the folder back under her arm and shifted the diaper bag. I hope today ends kindly for you, she added, and meant it. So do I, my daughter replied. We stood together a moment longer, 3 women choosing a cleaner path over a faster one. Then the pastor lifted the card toward me. I'll call to confirm, he said. We'll sit down Monday. We turned toward the hall, and my phone buzzed as the appointment reminder slid onto the screen. The office was modest and tidy, sunlight warming a row of diplomas behind glass. Ms. Patel slid a yellow legal pad toward us and uncapped a fountain pen that clicked softly. Let's go step by step, she said, voice steady enough to lean on. I set the pastor's prints on the table, followed by the clerk's email and the copies the woman had given us. My daughter placed the voicemail transcript on top, aligning corners as if that could make the day square. Ms. Patel glanced through each page, lips pressed, then arranged them into stacks. A small glass of water waited by each chair. She asked for dates and places, not gossip. When did the counseling begin? When did the clerk respond? What time was the pause? She wrote in clean lines, drawing a simple flowchart. Now, next, later. Her pen moved like a metronome, making rhythm where I had only felt static. Here is the good news, she said. A valid prior marriage on record means no new marriage occurred yesterday, whatever the appearances. Your pastor did exactly right. He protected you from entering something void and from confusion later. If needed, we can ask the court to flag records to prevent any accidental issuance. She tapped the legal pad. Your priorities are threefold. Protect safety, preserve records, notify necessary offices. Vendors first. Venue, florist, photographer, caterer. So deposits can be handled with less loss. The License Bureau should receive a written withdrawal or clarification. The bank needs to know you revoke consent for any joint credit or accounts you did not sign. Then she slid a printed template across the table. This letter revokes consent for any applications and requests the return of property purchased by you. Receipts attached. It also directs all further communication to come in writing through counsel. No meetings alone, no doorstep visits. Calm, firm, lawful. My daughter read it with her finger resting on each line, like a steadying handrail. I can sign this, she said. We'll send by certified mail and email today. Ms. Patel nodded. I will transmit as your counsel and keep a copy for the file. The printer hummed and warmed the room with a faint paper smell. Ms. Patel handed us a checklist. Vendors. Bank License Bureau, with small boxes to tick and a note at the bottom. Keep copies. Sleep. Eat. Grief still needs rest, she said, almost like a blessing. Do not rush to replace pain with noise. She slid a sturdy folder toward us with a clear pocket labeled Timeline. Inside, she'd placed the checklist, the letter template, and a sheet for call logs. Write dates, names, and what was said. Screenshots and emails go here. We stood when she did, steadier than when we came. My phone buzzed with a message from the pastor. Thinking of you. We carried the folder to the car and turned toward home, ready to make the afternoon calls. At home, I cleared the table until the wood showed its quiet grain. I set a spiral notebook in the middle, a blue pen across its rings, and laid receipts in tidy rows like small flags. The folder from Ms. Patel sat open, checklist on top. Kettle on, mugs ready, we began. Venue first, I said, dialing the number on our contract. The manager answered with a voice like warm bread. I explained lightly and plainly. Of course, she replied. I heard pages turn. I'll mark your date as hold pending. Your deposit can convert to a future family gathering credit. I wrote her name, time, and exact words in the notebook. The florist picked up on the second ring, scissors clicking faintly in the background. When I told her we wouldn't need the full order, she sighed, not in annoyance, but in care. Let me donate the smaller arrangements to our church homebound list, she offered. We'll adjust the invoice and send a note for your records. An email chimed before we hung up. I stapled the new quote to our receipt and noted, Donated blooms. Gratitude sent. The photographer replied by email. Subject line, standing with you. She wrote that a partial refund would process by end of day, the rest held as credit for a quieter session when we were ready. She attached a simple amendment. We signed digitally and saved the PDF to a folder named Timeline on my desktop. I printed the confirmation, the printer warming the room with the smell of ink and paper. Tea poured. We turned to the County License Bureau. I opened a new email, withdrawal of pending application. In clear sentences, we referenced our file number and requested the record reflect our decision not to proceed. I attached the judge's scheduling notice from Ms. Patel, then paused, remembering, facts only. I removed anything extra, kept it clean, clicked send, and wrote the time in the notebook's outgoing column. Bank? My daughter asked. We took our keys in the folder and drove the short distance. At the counter, a clerk with careful glasses listened and typed. There's an attempted joint card application from yesterday, she said, turning her screen so we could see the timestamp. Without your signature, it cannot proceed. I'll flag it and place a block on any related inquiries. The small printer spit out a confirmation. She highlighted the reference number and handed it to us like a sturdy bookmark. We thanked her for her kindness. Back home, we taped every receipt into the spiral notebook, one per line. I drew 2 columns, date, action, and filled the page with our steps. The envelope we'd chosen for originals received a neat label, Timeline. Into it went confirmations, printed emails, the bank slip, and the florist's amendment. The folder from Ms. Patel rested on top, a paper roof over our day. When the phone rang again, I answered on speaker. "Community Officer Ramirez," a calm voice said. "I received your message. I can stop by this afternoon for a brief safety check, if that works." I looked at my daughter. We nodded together, grateful for a plan that kept moving gently forward. The knock was soft enough not to startle. I opened the door to a uniform and kind eyes. Officer Ramirez removed his hat and stepped into our living room as if entering a library. "Thank you for calling," he said, voice low. We sat at the coffee table where I'd set our timeline envelope, the spiral notebook, and 2 mugs. He took out a small notebook, wrote our names carefully. "Let's walk through what you have first." We breathed together once. I slid the envelope toward him. He read our log, tracing dates, then circled 3 entries: the pause at church, the bank's block, the email to the license bureau. "These matter," he said. "Keep noting who, when, and what was said. If someone calls, record that too. You're doing this exactly right." My daughter unlocked her phone and opened the saved voicemails. He leaned in, showing her how to tap Save to Files and email the audio to Ms. Patel. "Screenshots are good, but export the full thread," he added, demonstrating where to find timestamps. He asked permission before handling her phone, then set it back. "From here," he said, "keep everything in writing. No private meetings. If there must be contact, choose public spaces. Or better, let counsel handle it. Do not respond in the heat of the moment." He glanced toward the window where the maple leaves moved like calm water. "Let your lawyer be the front door." He nodded toward the church bulletin on our sideboard. "Your pastor can enforce no contact on church property," he said. "If you like, I'll email him a short note confirming your preference so ushers know to intervene if needed." We agreed. He jotted the pastor's email and double-checked the spelling. "May I look at your exterior lights?" he asked. We stepped to the porch. Evening would come later, but he cupped a hand over the sensor and watched the bulb rise to steady brightness. "Good," he said. "Change the door code today. Choose a number not tied to birthdays." He pointed to the keypad and smiled. "Write it down somewhere safe for the first week." Back inside, our dog ambled over and sniffed his shoe. He scratched behind one ear, then handed us a trifold pamphlet. Safety planning at home and online. "Simple reminders," he said. "None of this means fear. It means preparation." He looked at my daughter. "You have done hard, wise things this week. Keep going." He stood, tucking his notebook away. "I'll check in midweek," he said, placing his card beside the envelope. The door clicked gently behind him. The house felt a little taller, like someone had squared its shoulders. My daughter opened her laptop at the dining table. We pulled Ms. Patel's template onto the screen and began. Revoke consent. Request return of items. All contact through counsel. The printer warmed. An envelope and a green certified slip waited by the kettle. We aimed to sign, scan, and reach the post office before evening. The letter waited in its stamped envelope beside a cooling cup of chamomile tea. I read it once more out loud, each word clean and necessary. "I revoke consent to any joint applications and request return of items purchased by me. All communication should be in writing through counsel. No thorns, just a fence." My daughter signed in blue ink, her hand steady. I dated the line and wrote my name as witness beneath, then placed the page on the flatbed scanner. The light traveled from left to right, a thin sunrise. I saved the file as Revocation Timeline PDF and emailed it to Ms. Patel with a quiet note. Attached, as discussed. Her auto-reply arrived at once. Received. We sealed the envelope and pressed the flap smooth. At the post office, the clerk slid it onto the scale and typed, the soft click of keys like rain. "Certified?" she asked. We nodded. She peeled a green slip, wrapped it around the edge, and stamped a neat round date on the corner. "Tracking is here," she said, tapping a number. "Keep this top portion." We stepped aside to the counter and took a photo of the receipt just in case. The lobby smelled faintly of dust and rubber bands. A child counted P.O. boxes under her breath. I tucked the stub into my wallet and felt something settle. Back home, the kettle hissed again. We taped the postal receipt into our spiral notebook and wrote the time. Mailed, certified, tracking recorded. The printer hummed as I printed the email we'd sent. Pages cooled under my palm. I slid them into the timeline envelope and pressed the clasp until it clicked. "Forward a copy to the pastor?" my daughter asked. "Yes," I said. I attached the letter and wrote one line. "For your records, to support no contact on church property." His reply came 5 minutes later. Boundaries noted. "We are with you." I let the words sit like a hand on my shoulder. We set our phones to do not disturb after 8 p.m., a small mercy to our ribs and sleep. I wrote the new door code on a sticky note for the first week and tucked it inside the drawer. Dishes washed, counters wiped, Lamp dimmed. We let the house exhale. Before bed, I opened the drawer and looked at the timeline folder, its edges square and obedient. We had done the day's work. Tea tomorrow, I said, and meant steadiness more than drink. My daughter nodded and turned off the hall light. Silence gathered like a shawl. Morning light came soft through the curtains. A sparrow scolded the gutter, and the coffee maker clicked alive. My phone buzzed on the counter with a new email. Ms. Patel, subject line, hearing, license clarification. I breathed, touched the screen, and saw the appointment hold settle onto the calendar like a small, sure stone. The marble floor cooled my palms where I rested them on my knees. A vending machine hummed like a distant bee, and a paper docket was taped to glass with blue painter's tape, names printed in neat columns. We stood outside the courtroom door while Ms. Patel flipped open a slim binder, a brass clip holding our packet in order. "Let's review once more," she said. She laid each item across the bench between us. The clerk's certified record with its raised seal. The pastor's memo describing the pause and his duty of care. Our spiral notebook printout with dates. The revocation letter and the green postal receipt. She ran a fingertip along the seal, then underlined the case number with a pale yellow highlighter. "We can be brief," she added and smiled at my daughter. "The facts are clear." A bailiff opened the door and nodded. The courtroom was smaller than it looks on television. Wooden benches, a flag, a clock that ticked without hurry. We sat in the front row until our matter was called. Ms. Patel touched my sleeve, then rose. "Good morning, Your Honor," she began. "We seek clarification and a simple flag to prevent confusion." The judge wore reading glasses low on his nose, eyes steady. "Counsel," he said, motioning with his pen. Ms. Patel summarized. The pastor's pause. The clerk's record indicating an existing marriage for the groom, our written steps to protect against unintended filings. She did not add adjectives. She did not need to. The judge reviewed the certified copy, tracing the embossed county seal with his thumb. He read the pastor's memo, then the revocation letter. "Thank you," he said, looking up. Prudence in a public moment can spare a great deal of private pain. He glanced toward us. "I appreciate the pastor's caution." He clicked his pen once and spoke for the record.
"The court notes an existing marriage on file for the named individual."
Any attempted marriage involving Ms. Rivera is therefore void and did not occur. To prevent further confusion, the court orders that no marriage license may issue involving Ms. Rivera without her confirmed in-person consent for 6 months. This administrative flag is protective, not punitive. Ms. Patel nodded. "Thank you, Your Honor." The judge added gently, "All parties are reminded to respect no-contact preferences. Let counsel communicate." He signed a short order and tapped a stamp. The sound, small, final, settled my breathing. Outside, the hallway felt brighter. We collected our papers, and Ms. Patel slid the signed order into a clear sleeve. "I'll email a scanned copy this afternoon," she said. "Keep the original flat." We thanked her there under the docket and moved toward the stairs. Sunlight pooled at the base of the steps, warm on the back of my hand. I closed my eyes for a moment and let it rest there. My phone buzzed. A text from the pastor lit the screen. "When you are ready, we can meet with 2 elders to shape a kind message for the congregation. No rush. Your timing." I showed it to my daughter as we stepped out into the day. We sat on a courthouse bench with paper cups warming our hands, coffee lids clicking softly as we shifted. The order lay between us. The clerk's stamp a clean round moon on the page. I read it once with my eyes, then again with my shoulders, feeling the weight of it lower and settle where breath lives. "It is clear," Ms. Patel said, tapping the paragraph about the 6-month flag. "No license may issue without your confirmed in-person consent. This removes pressure, confusion, and surprises." Her voice stayed gentle, like someone smoothing a quilt, not just pointing to lines. She slid a pen cap along the margin. "Next property. If anything you requested isn't returned, we can file in small claims court with your inventory and receipts. It's routine. You won't be alone." She looked at my daughter. "Do not try to negotiate privately. Let me carry those conversations in writing." My daughter nodded, fingers stilling on the rim of her cup. "What about messages?" Ms. Patel lifted a hand. "You owe no replies. Silence is also a form of strength. If something appears that needs response, forward it to me. Keep screenshots and the originals." We thanked her, simple words that felt too small for what she had studied. I took a photo of the stamped order, then slid the original into a clear sleeve and clipped it inside our folder. Ms. Patel checked her watch. "I'll scan and email this to you by evening," she said. "Eat something, walk a little, then rest." She pressed her card into my hand, as though we hadn't already memorized the number. When we stood, the hallway seemed shorter than before. On the steps outside, the stone felt lower underfoot. We matched our pace to the rhythm of counting. 1, 2, breathing in on the odd numbers, out on the even. Sun sat soft on the courthouse flag, and a school bus sighed at the light like a big friendly animal. Around the corner, a deli offered 2 quiet stools by a window. We ate simple sandwiches, the bread fresh enough to remind us that ordinary goodness still existed. "My hands aren't shaking," my daughter said, surprising herself. "Mine either," I answered, and we let the clock do its quiet work of carrying us forward. Back at the car, I tucked the folder behind my seat and clicked the buckle. On the drive home, we named small things we could manage: laundry, basil to water, a dog to walk. The traffic light blinked from red to green, so obedient, so sure of its job. At the kitchen counter, I laid the original order flat and sent Ms. Patel a thank you with the photo attached. The email reply arrived like a steady bell. "Well done. We proceed as needed." I slid the order into the drawer with our timeline folder and smoothed the edges once. My phone chimed softly with a calendar note the pastor had placed. Library meeting, pastor and elders. We agreed on the time and closed our screens. Evening gathered along the windows, and we let it. Tomorrow, we would sit among hymnals and peppermint candies and shape words that held truth without harm. Shelves of hymnals lined the church library, their spines like small brick rows. A bowl of peppermint candies sat beside a box of tissues. In the middle of the table, a legal pad waited with a pen. The pastor held the door for us and 2 elders, and the chairs gave small, polite squeaks as we sat. "Thank you for coming," he said. He slid a printed draft to the center and read, "Our church paused a ceremony to uphold truth and protect all involved. Please respect privacy, avoid speculation, and offer kindness." He looked at my daughter. "Does this feel right?" She ran her thumb along the legal pad's edge. "Yes," she said. "I don't want details in the air. Just a clear line." One elder folded his hands. "We'll gently inform ministry leads, greeters, ushers, choir," he said. "Same message, no additions." The other added, "We'll remind the prayer chain to guard words. Prayers, not theories." The pastor nodded and wrote, "Boundaries." He looked to us. "For the record, no contact on church property. If you attend, text the office before arrival. An usher can escort you to your seat and back to your car." My daughter agreed. He added the judge's order number in the margin, a quiet anchor. I unwrapped a peppermint and felt my shoulders lower as the sweet cooled my mouth. "Thank you for guiding the language," I said. "Clarity makes room for kindness." He spun the legal pad and wrote the final version in his careful hand, then typed it into his computer. The printer chirped and fed out 2 copies. He signed the bottom with the date and time, and tucked one into a folder labeled Pastoral Care Private. The label's neat letters steadied me more than I expected. He handed the second copy to my daughter. "You may keep this," he said. "If anyone asks, you can read from it or show it." "You owe no more." His phone buzzed once. "Facilities lead confirms ushers will be briefed by this evening," he said. The elders stood. We circled the table, hands on wood rather than each other, and he prayed a short, gentle prayer that asked for peace without naming storms. At the door, I thanked each elder. The pastor walked us to the hall. "Do you have what you need for the next steps?" he asked. I thought of our ledger and the checklist waiting at home. "Yes," I said. "We're meeting the bank this afternoon to settle deposits and credits." "Then go in peace," he said. "Send me anything you need in writing." "I'll answer today." We stepped into the bright corridor. The bowl of peppermints glinted in the doorway as we turned toward the parking lot and our 2:00 appointment. In the car, I set the memo on the dashboard and checked calendar. Ms. Lopez at the bank had reserved a corner desk. Numbers are not the heart, I told myself, but they can help it keep a steady beat. The bank's small conference nook felt calm, a tidy desk facing a potted fern and a window with afternoon light. Ms. Lopez smiled, pulled a chair for my daughter, and turned her monitor so we could see. A spreadsheet waited open, columns neat as fence pickets. "Let's color code," she said, fingers quick but unhurried. She shaded deposits blue, pending refunds green, and circled a charge that should reverse. "This line," she tapped, "was your florist's adjustment. I see the credit in process." She entered today's date and our notes in a comments field, then saved with a soft click. She checked another screen. "Here's the attempted joint card application," she said. "Flag on. No action can proceed without your in-person signature. I'll add a monitoring note and email you if anything pings." The printer warmed and fed 2 short statements, each page stamped with today's date. She added a 1-page checklist titled, Accounts and vendors. Boxes empty and welcoming. While we're here, call your venue, she suggested. I'll log whatever they promise. I dialed. Put it on speaker. The manager's voice floated through. We can shift your deposit to a future family brunch. Same menu credit. No rush on the date. Ms. Lopez typed the phrase verbatim. My phone chimed with the confirmation email. I forwarded it to our timeline address and to Ms. Patel, then wrote the time on a sticky note. Next, the caterer. He listened, then said, "We can reduce the order to 40 boxed meals and deliver them to the shelter tonight." He promised an updated invoice and a donation acknowledgement on letterhead. When his email arrived, Ms. Lopez smiled. "That's real kindness," she said, initialing the checklist box and handing us a paperclip for our growing stack. We called the photographer from the parking lot. She sent her partial refund while we watched, a small green line appearing in the banking app like fresh grass. The air felt easier to breathe. My daughter rested her forehead against the car seat and closed her eyes for a count of 10. Back home, we opened the spiral notebook and the timeline envelope. I taped the bank statements to one page and the venue's confirmation to the next. We tucked the caterer's acknowledgement behind a tab marked donations. I wrote, "Meals delivered to shelter, confirmation saved," and felt the ledger become a modest, honest record of care, the numbers telling our steadiness back to us. The printer hummed, offering one more sheet, Ms. Lopez's checklist, now speckled with inked ticks. We placed it in front like a table of contents. The fern green from her desk seemed to follow us home in our lungs. "I think we should speak to someone about feelings, not just lines and dates," I said. "Thursday?" My daughter nodded. I called the counselor on the pastor's list, and the receptionist's warm voice found us a late morning slot. The confirmation email arrived with the address and a gentle reminder to come as we are. Thursday. The room was quiet in the way libraries are quiet, respectful rather than empty. 2 armchairs angled toward each other, and between them a low table held a box of tissues, 2 glasses of water beaded with condensation, and a bowl of smooth river stones. A whiteboard stood to one side, clean, markers tucked into a little tray. Ms. Green greeted us with a soft smile and a posture that said, "I can hold this." She didn't rush. "We'll go slow," she said, palms open. "Would you like to name what you're feeling and place a stone for each one?" My daughter nodded, breathing through her nose like someone walking up a gentle hill. She chose a gray stone first. "Sadness," she said and set it on the table. Another darker stone. "Anger." She picked a pale one, almost white. "Relief." She hesitated, then chose a small reddish stone. "Shame," she whispered. I laid my hand beside the stones, not touching. "Present." Ms. Green nodded. "All 4 can sit together," she said. "They don't cancel each other out." She lifted a marker and drew a quiet line on the whiteboard. "Let's place moments along a timeline. Where shall we begin?" "Counseling intake," my daughter said, tapping an invisible date in the air. He signed forms. Ms. Green wrote, "Intake," then added small circles for the pastor's pause, the clerk's email, the woman on the steps, and the bank flag. She asked for no extra drama, just dates and what they meant. "What were red flags you ignored?" she asked gently. My daughter traced the air again. Stories that shifted, phone always dead. A rush to finalize details he hadn't helped plan. Ms. Green drew small triangles along the line. "And boundaries you honored?" "The pastor's consent form," I said. We didn't push past it. My daughter added, "The letter, the block at the bank, the court flag. No private meetings." Ms. Green drew small stars by each and wrote, "Courage moments." She turned the marker in her fingers. "When friends ask, what would you like to say?" My daughter looked at the stones. "I don't want to explain everything." "You don't have to," Ms. Green said. She offered a few words, writing them on the board. "Thank you for caring." We chose to pause because of undisclosed legal barriers. "We're okay." My daughter read the script out loud, then again, slower. The words settled into the room like a shawl over shoulders. Ms. Green invited her to add one more sentence she could believe on tired days. She thought, then said, "I chose safety. I am still worthy of love." Ms. Green underlined it once. We sat with that line. My daughter said it again, quieter. I repeated it too, so my mouth would remember. Ms. Green passed a small handout on self-care, sleep, water, walks, limits, and circled the line about letting others help with simple tasks. "Your nervous system notices these small mercies," she said. At the end, she placed the stones back in the bowl, one by one. "These feelings will move," she said. "You don't have to chase them." We booked a follow-up and she walked us to the door. Afternoon light widened along the hallway carpet. At home, My daughter carried the handout to her desk and straightened a stack of blank pages. The lamp waited there, calm as a lighthouse. "I think I'll write tonight," she said, voice steady. I put the kettle on and set a pen beside her notebook, letting evening arrive in its own time. In lamplight, the desk looked like a small harbor. My daughter set her notebook down, uncapped a pen, and breathed until her shoulders softened. The handout from Ms. Green lay nearby, the line underlined, "I chose safety. I am still worthy of love." A mug left a pale ring on the coaster. The house held its breath the way houses do at night. I sat at the doorway with my own cup, close enough to be here, far enough to give her quiet. The clock ticked, not hurrying anyone. She dated the first page and wrote, "Dear without a name." "Not to send," she said, as if to remind the room. Her handwriting moved steady, a little slower than usual, each letter like a placed stone. She named the public moment plain as a ledger entry, how the pastor paused, how a single sheet on a Bible asked for consent, how truth, when given room, protected all of us. "I wanted vows to be clean," she murmured, pen resting. "I wanted a life we both carried." She wrote thank you to the pastor for choosing clarity over hurry. She wrote thank you to the woman on the steps for her courage, for showing up with papers and a diaper bag and care for someone she did not know. She wrote about relief arriving like air in a tight room, and sorrow sitting beside it, neither erasing the other. At times she stopped and looked out the window, and then returned to the line she had underlined that morning. Then she listed what she deserves, not as demands, but as promises to herself, honesty spoken first, shared planning, safety that does not need permission, a partner who keeps records and deadlines without hiding. "No more explanations that bend," she said softly. "No more rushing me past my breath." She wrote, "I choose safety. I release you." The sentence looked ordinary and powerful, like a latch sliding home. She signed her name and laid the pen down. She folded the pages once and slid them into an envelope. On the front she wrote, "Kept for me," and drew a small square around the words. The flap sealed with a soft press of her palm. She stood, opened the dresser drawer, and set the envelope beside a stack of letters from kinder seasons. "This is enough," she told the quiet. I rose and hugged her in the doorway. No speeches, just the old rhythm of mother and child steadying each other. We washed our cups and turned off the lamp. The house settled like soil after rain. Morning found us with toast and a list. My phone chimed with Ms. Patel's email. Several items returned, one still outstanding, inventory attached. My daughter touched the envelope in the drawer, then nodded. "We'll handle it," she said. I opened our ledger and laid the email beside it, ready to send a gentle follow-up through counsel and give the day a fair, firm start. I reached for reply. The ring sat in its velvet box on Ms. Patel's conference table, glinting like a lesson. A carafe of water, 3 glasses, and a neat stack of forms waited. The blinds striped the wall with pale light. My daughter and I sat side by side, our folder between us. Ms. Patel opened her yellow legal pad and uncapped her pen. The wall clock ticked, unhurried. He entered with his shoulders small, carrying a white envelope. He placed the velvet box in the center and set the envelope beside it. "Thank you for coming," Ms. Patel said, voice even. "We'll keep this brief." He nodded, eyes low. "There are receipts," he added, sliding the envelope forward. Ms. Patel lifted the flap and drew out a receipt for alterations and 2 smaller slips. "We'll list items for the record," she said, writing, "ring in velvet box. Alteration receipt. 2 additional receipts." He cleared his throat. "I'm sorry," he said, the words thin as paper. My daughter's hands rested palm down on the table. She did not look away. Ms. Patel met his eyes. "Today is only a supervised return," she said gently. "Further contact must be in writing through counsel." The copier clicked once in the hallway, a small reminder that records matter. Ms. Patel turned the inventory toward us and tapped the signature lines. "Please review for accuracy." My daughter read, touched the box, and nodded. "It's correct." She signed steady, then dated. I initialed as witness. He signed next, the pen scratching. Ms. Patel stamped the corner, tore along a perforation, and handed each of us a copy. "No contact terms remain," she said. "If additional items surface, email me. Do not meet privately." She closed the ring box. "Would you like me to hold it for appraisal?" "Yes," my daughter said, a breath leaving her ribs. Ms. Patel slipped the box into a padded bag, labeled it with the date, and set it in a drawer. He stood. "Thank you," he said to the room, then turned. "Thank you," my daughter answered, also to the room, not to the past. Ms. Patel walked him to the door, then returned. gathering the receipts into a clear sleeve. "I'll email a brief summary this afternoon," she said. We sat one moment more, letting quiet smooth the table. In the elevator, mirrored walls softened our faces. My daughter released a long breath. "Almost done," she said, and I pressed the lobby button. Downstairs, the lobby plants looked greener than before. Outside, the day felt wider. We drove home with the inventory copy clipped inside our folder, the office stamp drying to a dull shine. At the kitchen counter, I filed our copy and set a sticky note, "Appraisal pending." Ms. Patel had promised a formal closing letter next. We kept the afternoon gentle, washing fruit, folding towels, letting our shoulders lower. Near dusk, her email pinged with a short confirmation, and we slept early. Morning light found us as the mail slot clicked. And a white envelope slid onto the mat like a quiet visitor. Our names were typed above a steady letterhead. I brought it to the kitchen table, reached for the silver opener we only use for important things, and eased the flap. 3 pages, neatly clipped, rested in my hands, the paper cool and sure. "From Ms. Patel," I said. My daughter sat beside me, palms flat on the wood. I read aloud. Final status and next steps. The first paragraph gathered the week in plain language. The pastor's pause, the clerk's record, the hearing. No marriage was entered, it stated, clear as a bell. The court's protective flag remains in effect for 6 months. No license may issue without Ms. Rivera's confirmed in-person consent. The next section named boundaries and affirmed them. All communications should continue through counsel. No private meetings. No contact on church property remains in force, as coordinated with the pastor. I felt my shoulders lower at the firmness of those lines. Ms. Patel referenced the pastor's memo and included a clean copy behind the letter, a small paper shield for Sundays. She summarized property. Items requested have been addressed by return or documentation. Inventory recorded. Appraisal of ring pending. She listed the date of the supervised exchange, then the receipt numbers, a constellation of proof. If any additional items arise, small claims process remains available. My office will monitor and advise. The 3rd page held rest like a folded blanket. Vendor adjustments confirmed. Venue deposit converted to future family brunch credit. Photographer partial refund processed. Florist donation documented. Caterer meals delivered to shelter. She attached the caterer's acknowledgement and the venue's credit note. A short paragraph followed with support resources, counseling, community lines, and a reminder to call if sleep slipped or worry grew. At the back, a copy of the clerk's email gleamed with its simple seal. The judge's order was summarized in a neat bullet that somehow did not feel sharp. "Your boundaries are appropriate and lawful," Ms. Patel wrote, and I wanted to frame that sentence and hang it by the door. We sat a moment, breathing. I took a photo of the first page for our digital file. Then I slid the packet into our timeline folder, now thick but orderly, and pressed the metal clasp closed. It felt like placing a book back where it belongs. My daughter traced the label with one fingertip and exhaled. "Time to feed our people," I said. We called the venue. The manager smiled through the line and offered 2 Saturdays that might work for a backyard brunch. We chose one, not too soon, not far off, and she sent a confirmation before we hung up. I forwarded the email to our folder and wrote the date on the calendar in blue ink. The florist answered with warmth. "We'll repurpose what we can," she said. Simple jars, a few bright bundles. I pictured mason jars catching light under the maple tree and nodded into the phone. We made a small list, borrowed chairs, music low, plates for neighbors, and set it beside the kettle. Outside, the leaves moved like yes, and the afternoon opened gently to meet us. Under the maple, we set 3 long tables and a scatter of borrowed chairs, none of them matching, all of them friendly. A playlist of joyful songs hummed at a gentle volume, the kind you can talk over without shouting. The air smelled of cut grass and coffee. We slipped rescued flowers into mason jars, stems shortened and rediscovered. The jars caught sunlight and made it dance on the white cloths like water. On one table, I propped 2 photo boards, baby teeth grins, camping trips, a 10th birthday cake with crooked candles. Beside the forks, a guest book waited with a ribboned pen. I traced the first line and wrote, "Thank you for being here. Please leave a blessing." A basket held folded cards for anyone who wanted more space than a line. People arrived carrying quiches and warm towels, bowls of berries, a plate of deviled eggs that smelled like picnics in spring. Shoes scuffed softly on the deck steps. Hugs were brief and kind, the kind that say, "I see you," not "explain." The pastor stood by the patio string lights, head bowed, hands open. For food, for hands that prepared it, for truth that steadied us, and for gentleness still at work, he prayed. The amen felt like a low tide, drawing worry away without fuss. Someone started the playlist's second hour, and laughter lifted like birds. My daughter's cousins pulled her into a circle near the lilac, and for a long minute she laughed with her whole face, the way she did at 7. I let the sound wash straight through me. Neighbors brought folding chairs and set them with the efficiency of people who have served countless potlucks. The florist's assistant arrived with extra jars and tucked them between pitchers of lemonade. The caterer's note lay on the buffet. Shelter delivery complete. Blessings returned in small loops. Then the woman from the church steps slipped through the gate with a tin of cookies balanced on her palm. She set it near the coffee, nodded to me, and I met her halfway. "Thank you," I said, "for these and for before." She touched my forearm, small and brave, and left with a small wave. No drama, only kindness. By noon, the guest book pages fluttered with handwriting, prayers, a recipe, a joke about borrowed chairs. One entry read, "Light finds you," and under it a drawing of a tiny lamp. My daughter signed a line for herself. Today I laughed. Plates emptied. Stories made easy work of the shade. The pastor moved through the yard collecting cups. When he reached the maple, he pointed to the photo boards. "Let's take one more," he said. We gathered, cousins, aunties, neighbors, and smiled for a picture of who we are, not what didn't happen. The sun eased toward afternoon. Guests hugged, carried chairs to cars, and promised to return bowls tomorrow. The yard quieted. I gathered napkins, stacked plates, set water to boil. A clean cup and a corner of shade waited for peace. Evening returned the house to itself. I lifted the veil from the back of a chair and hung it in the closet, safe and unhurried, the lace soft as a sigh. The door closed without a click, leaving the fabric to rest in the dark. I walked the room slowly, like a caretaker after visiting hours. Borrowed chairs went back into tidy stacks. Tablecloths folded into patient squares. I rinsed the last mason jar and turned it upside down on a towel, water ticking from the rim. Crumbs gathered into my palm and found the bin. On the buffet, the guest book lay open with a ribboned pen asleep beside it. I read 2 entries and smiled. "Light finds you," someone had written, with a little lamp drawn underneath. I slipped the book into its box and tied the string. At the counter, our timeline folder waited like a faithful dog. I slipped Ms. Patel's closing letter on top and slid the whole bundle into the drawer. It went in like a book back on its shelf, known, reachable, finished for now. The drawer shut with a sound that felt like yes. Outside, the porch steps glowed faintly. I cupped a hand over the sensor. The bulb rose to a steady, generous light. Officer Ramirez's card sat beside the phone. I thumbed the old door code note from my wallet and tore it neatly in half. We know it by heart now. I plugged in my phone and sent 3 messages. To the pastor, "Thank you for shepherding with care." His reply came quickly. "Proud of you both. Here if needed." To Ms. Patel, "We received your letter and breathe easier." She wrote back, "Rest. We proceed only if necessary." To Ms. Green, "Your words held today. Thank you." Her dots pulsed then. "Drink water. Breathe. Be gentle tonight." The kettle clicked on. I set 2 mugs on the tray and added the last lemon slice to mine. The kitchen smelled faintly of soap and basil. I turned off the dining lamp, leaving 1 small bulb by the sink, like a lighthouse for late cups. We took our tea to the porch and let the evening make our decisions for us. Crickets stitched a soft seam across the dark. Somewhere down the block, a screen door eased shut. The maple tree lifted and settled, a slow green animal at rest. My daughter leaned her shoulder against mine. "I'm okay," she said, not testing the words, just offering them. "You are," I answered. We sat without hurry. We talked about the tomatoes that needed staking, the basil that wanted pinching, the way sunlight had made lace on the grass. Work crept into the edges of our thoughts. The simple comfort of lists and lunches and Monday's emails. We spoke about the next good thing finding its own pace, not forced by fear or loneliness. Maybe a day trip when the calendar settles. Maybe nothing grand. Only Saturday pancakes and church at the hour that feels kind. The porch light blessed the steps. The house breathed with us, sure and kind. When our cups were empty, we sat a little longer, letting peace take its full turn. Then we rose together and closed the door softly, leaving the night to hold what it could, and the morning to come when it was ready.